I've been studying corona as a data scientist. My area of speciality is time trajectories of anything since for 150 days already, basically working, 18 hours a day. And basically focusing on the data. I'm going to leave aside economics, politics, and media, and just simply talk about the science here. And I must say that this is the first time I've actually ever done real-time science, i.e. putting out 30 reports in as many days, full of typos, errors, backtracking, and everything. One thing that has struck me once the virus moved from its China-Korea phase to the rest of the world at the beginning of March is how totally inadequate science structure is for real-time science. People are insisting on refereed reports. No one wants to share anything. The scientists are more panicked and scared of reality than anybody else. The august organizations like Lindau, the Royal Society, the National Academy of Science have been totally silent. I am really disappointed. This has got nothing to do with the politics. As a group, scientists have failed the younger generation. Deciding what to do in this situation is really, really difficult. We cannot rely on one or two voices. There should have been a committee formed either by the Nobel Foundation, by Lindau, by the Royal Society, the National Academy in the middle of February when this was coming down the road, and we should have discussed this. Instead, we let economics and politics dedicate the science. And for me, the worst opposition I got was from very, very prominent scientists who were so scared that the non-scientists would break quarantine and infect them. There was total panic. And the fact is that almost all the science we were hearing, for example, from organizations like the World Health Organization, was wrong. We had Facebook censoring the World Health Organization, contrary views. This has been a disgraceful situation for science, and I have nothing to do. We should have been talking with each other. Reports were released openly, shared by email, and all I got back was abuse. And you're going to see that everything I said in that first 6 weeks was actually true, and for political reasons, we as scientists let our views be corrupted. The data had very clear things to say. Nobody said to me, let me check your numbers. They all just said, stop talking like that. So I think if we had had initially just a few scientists talking to each other on Zoom, not about the opinions, but about the data. What is the population infection ratio? What is the severity? Does the thing grow exponentially? There are some very, very simple questions. And it's true that the epidemiologists were always saying that we're not epidemiologists, but the fact is that viral cases and deaths follow a time trajectory. And I think physicists and theoretical chemists who understand trajectories are way better qualified. The epidemiologists made their normal error. Epidemiologists they see their job not as getting things correct, but preventing an epidemic. So therefore, if they say it's 100 times worse than it's going to be, it's okay. Their mistake was that we listened to them. They said the same thing for Ebola. They said the same thing for bird flu. No one shut down for them. We should never have listened to the epidemiologists. They have caused hundreds of billions of dollars worth of suffering and damage, mainly on the younger generation. This is going to be a tragedy it's going to make 9/11 look like a baby story. This is much, much worse. I am not against lockdown. I am against stupid lockdown without considering the full picture, i.e. not just combating a virus that is exactly as dangerous as flu, but also avoiding the economic damage that every country has caused itself except Sweden. We have really, really failed as a group. There have been smart people in Sweden, and that's about it. Germany is getting reinfected because they cut down too strongly. The level of stupidity that's been going on here has been amazing, and it just required a little bit of discussion of smart people. I'm not saying I'm right, but I would like people to conjure me on the details. Why is it not exponential? I can show you. Why is the case infection ratio this, not that? There is data for this. In other words, everything is data-driven, but people have chosen not to look at the data. Even in many places, the politics has infected the scientists. Certainly in the USA, the politics has infected the scientists. And the problem is not just with lack of communication with the public. Scientists are arrogant and refuse to listen to people not in their fields. It's a bit like a CEO of a company. Scientists are getting away scot-free for causing billions of dollars worth of damage. And this is something which cannot be allowed to happen. It's not just the World Health Organization. Ferguson wanted Sweden to lock down, got Britain to lock down, and when the numbers become normal, exactly what you would have expected without lockdown, he then says, it's because of lockdown. This is terrible science. This is science which should go on trial. Scientists cannot cause damage like this and refuse to listen. I really, really tried hard to get them at least to discuss this with me. In the end, I said something I never say, whatever, just leave me alone, go ahead and die. And the fact is that epidemiology and modeling has been a disgrace. They have not looked at the data. They have been wrong at every turn. We're going to see that although coronavirus is a different disease, the net impact of death is going to be very similar to severe flu. And it's going to be that way without lockdown.
And everything is different because people have decided to use COVID as an excuse to make it different, perhaps inadvertently. I'm not a conspiracy theory person at all, but if you actually look at COVID rationally and take the numbers on COVID just quickly. So to date, I think about 1.2 million people are reported to have died of COVID. So that sounds like a big number until you realize that every day on Earth, 150,000 people die. So 1.2 million is 8 days of natural, normal death. Now we can even go further and say, how old are the people who are dying from COVID? And basically the people who are dying of COVID, certainly in the West, about half are over 85 years old. So basically, if you do something called life potential adjusted years or something like that, it's like years of life lost, you find out that the total number of years lost to COVID is 1/50,000th of all the years we have. So for a loss of life, it's like you have in your bank account $50,000 and suddenly $1 goes out of that. But if you decide to close your bank down because of that, you have something wrong with you. But essentially, human life on Earth has, just take 8 billion and multiply it by various things, you'll get a certain amount of life. Well, basically 1/50,000th of that has been lost to COVID. Yet we're prepared to change everything. And I think that this is for a number of very, very strange reasons. I think the reasons are all very complicated. The 2003 SARS was traumatic in East Asia, although the loss of life was basically less than motor vehicles in Shanghai in 2 days or something. I think in China, 200 people died from SARS 203. The way we detect COVID is very strange. Every other disease, you go to a doctor and you say, I feel sick. And the doctor says, okay, well, breathe for me, touch you here. COVID, they test you to see whether on your body is a certain RNA of a virus. The virus might be dead, the RNA might be broken, the testing might be super amplifying, but it's a little bit like saying if you wear a gray tie, you have COVID, and if you don't wear a gray tie, you don't. Now, that's another problem. No other disease is detected this way. So these things all change a lot about the disease, but I think the disease may be 3 times more severe than flu. It may only be 20% more than flu. But the fact is that the global burden of death, $1 out of 50,000, is not something that deserves this kind of treatment. But we have got the treatment. And my own feeling is that the way to behave is to try really, really hard to get back to how things used to be. The world worked pretty well. My own belief is that the biology of COVID is I think we're lucky that COVID is a mutation of a cold virus and not the mutation of influenza. Because influenza really is a nasty virus. It's designed to mutate quickly. It's designed to be very original and creative as a virus, which makes it also very destructive. So I think that we will be fine. We don't know yet. We still have a winter coming up. We see very strange phenomena in Europe of massive numbers of cases, but no deaths. And that's very surprising. I mean, you know, what is it? I mean, I also keep on asking myself, imagine during the flu season, we had a PCR test for flu. My guess is you would find that 10% of the people test positive because flu is endemic. So then would 10% of the deaths be flu related? No. I think we need to ask certain common sensical questions. I would like very much for things to go back. And one of the reasons why we made a special effort to come back to China as soon as we could, and it wasn't easy. The airfares are astronomical. It took us 3 days to get here, and it's normally an 8-hour flight. And quarantine is not fun. You know, it's a good time for introspection, and it was wonderful that we were together, but also difficult. I think, you know, but I'm really pleased I'm here. I would say another thing about this coronavirus pandemic is that corona is what's called a contrast agent. In microscopy, and like microscopy, you can take cells and you put like an orange dye on them, and suddenly you see all the details. So I think for society, COVID has been a contrast agent revealing what was in society, defects, cracks, that we didn't notice before. So this has to be seen as an opportunity. It's a little bit like you had maybe a Salesforce system. This has been a stress test for society. And now the smart thing is to learn from everything we've seen to prepare ourselves to go forward.